I'm Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. Nice. That's a good howl. Authentic.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've had practice. I can tell.
Definitely.
Lunacy is a Luminary podcast, and my Luminary guest today is Mariah Gannessa. I'd like to say she's my good friend, but we literally just met, although I feel like we've probably known each other for several lifetimes. You know what I mean? Remember back in Egypt when we were doing the things, playing these games with the things?
Sure.
Me too.
Yeah.
Mariah is a really amazing human being. She's an entrepreneur. She's a medicine woman. She's somebody who has created a company that serves to amplify indigenous cultures and indigenous wisdom as a means of allowing us to really reclaim our roots and be in love with Mother Earth. Right? Am I getting it right?
That's what we're about.
And yeah, she's a great human being. She's all about bringing light to the world. So thank you for being on Lunacy.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah,
happy
awesome.
to get to connect with you and your beautiful community through this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. And you live up here, right? Or you
I have roots here. Four Visions is based here. My family's here. I used to live here. These days I am in Costa Rica raising my son in the mountains of the Machuca Valley, about an hour from San Jose. And yeah, I still spend quite a bit of time here and I come back and forth.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm coming to visit. Watch
Awesome.
out. That's
cool.
right.
Yeah. Come check it out.
See you next week.
Nice.
Surprise.
Yeah. Two beautiful, beautiful places on this earth. So.
Yeah. It's awesome. So let's just dive in. I mean, I'd love to get to know a little bit about maybe some of your origin story here. Like, how is it that you got involved in, plant medicine and that sort of lineage? And then how is it that you created Four Visions? Like, what was I feel like there was some thing that happened where you were just like, Four Visions. And then, and then you reached out to the world and created this, Four Visionistic empire, like positive empire, not bad empire. Let's be clear. But really created this beautiful company that brings Westerners and plant medicine together and allows people you're like a bridge for all of that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. And, I really consider myself to be more than anything a steward of Four Visions. And when I tell kind of the background of it, you kind of will hear that Four Visions really kind of grew wings and took flight in a way that I never really could have imagined that it would become. And so really today I find myself really just tending to the altar of the prayer and, with a lot of humility and a lot of honor, getting this opportunity to be in service to the, powerful force that it is, but it's so much more than me or even my initial vision at this point. And it's such a great blessing to get to be in service to this type of work, because it is so incredibly meaningful and important. But it's a beautiful story of how it came to be.
It's like you opened the container and then it just blossomed on its own.
Yeah. I think it was really more than anything born from my own personal healing journey, which really led to the spark and kind of ignited the flame. But then, from there it really grew into its own kind of being, its own spirit. So, but essentially, my journey with plant medicines and just healing was very personal and at the same time probably similar to a lot of people's journeys. I grew up in Northern California and I had a really blessed, upbringing. And I, at the same time, found myself pretty unhappy. And I was, young. I graduated from high school at the age of 16 as top of my class with a full ride to UCLA. Oh, and so I was very academic.
Big brain on Mariah over here. Watch out, everybody.
Yeah, I was very academic, but it was, coming from a lot of my own insecurities of needing to prove myself or, trying to compensate or, find that sense of purpose or wholeness. I think a lot of people who think any type of success makes us better who we are. A lot of that stems from that. So for me, academics was always something I thrived in, but it was also something that caused a lot of fracturing from myself with who I was. And so, I pushed myself through high school, graduated so early, and then went to college, and I was feeling really lost. I was feeling really disconnected. And, even growing up in Northern California among the redwoods, I still felt like pretty disconnected from nature, pretty disconnected from what I was really here to do beyond just like those grades or, the scholarships, all the things. It's like at the end of the day, if you're not happy within your own being, it doesn't matter like what you're achieving in your life, there's still that emptiness or that lack of making sense of things,
Yeah, for sure. Can I ask a quick question? Do you find, looking back, that your striving to succeed so hard was that something that was like societal or familial, or was it like something in you that was just like, I gotta do this thing?
Yeah, I think it was societal, familial, within like my structure, my parents and my conditioning.
They're
and then
rock stars, your parents?
No, not even. Just like there was that desire, that expectation, as well as, my own expectations I put on myself. And then there was also something personal within me, which I started to understand as I kind of later on in my spiritual growth and evolutionary journey of, where that was coming from within me, starting to really understand the way my mind works and what I came here to do. But before I really had discovered what I came here to do, that desire was coming from this not really knowing and trying to figure it out and really just pushing myself. But again, not from that place of true connection or inspiration. And so from that place, I think a lot of us can relate to that, with our own reasons and in our own ways. We all have had that struggle of like, where is my motivation coming from and what am I trying to achieve and why? And all of those questions, if we don't ask them, then we just kind of ride that hamster wheel and we just are always kind of chasing after that next thing that we think, oh, once we achieve that, once we make that, then we'll be good with ourselves, we'll be content, we'll be satisfied, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't too long before I kind of started to figure out that wasn't the path I wanted to go down. And,
it wasn't working.
It wasn't working. So basically what happened is, I went to college, and the summer before I went to college, I drank ayahuasca for the first time. And when I drank medicine at 16 years old, my life completely radically changed. My eyes, opened up in a whole new way. I saw life for the first time since I could remember. And I was connected to nature in a way that, I realized that my soul had been deeply, deeply craving, and I was like thirsty for it.
Beautiful.
And so that first ceremony really changed everything for me. And so what happened was, when I went to school and I was like pre-med and was going to take all these, college classes, chemistry and pre-medical school classes, there was this kind of wake up that had kind of jolted me open. And I started realizing, what, this actually isn't for me. It's not the path that I'm meant to take. And I started to really see that my desire to walk this path wasn't actually coming from anything that was authentic. It was coming from all these other things that I had just mentioned, and started to really realize that I was feeling this emptiness in me while I was kind of going down this road. And so I took a leap of faith and I left school.
Whoa.
After 1 year.
Valedictorian, scholarship, full ride.
After 1 year.
At UCLA, you're just
I'm
like,
out. Yeah.
Sorry, losers. Go to the jungle. Is that what you said, everybody?
I'm out. I'm like, I think I've found my path. I told my family, my grandparents almost had a heart attack. It was really hard for them to kind of digest that and understand it. And actually it took pretty much a decade for my grandparents even to really understand like my path at all and have any sort of comprehension of why I would possibly want to leave the academic schooling and the path that for their generation was the ultimate way to get ahead.
Especially UCLA. It's not like you're going to community college. That's like top league there.
Yeah. So at that point, I really, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to support myself. I didn't know like what following the quote unquote medicine path looked like. And, you know, I didn't know anything.
It sounds fraught.
Looking back, you know, I applaud my absolute lack of awareness and innocence, you know, because it was that ultimate innocence and, you know, blind faith, like completely blind faith that led me to take that step, you know, and to walk down that new path that was completely, you know, new and unknown. You know, there was so much unknown, and then, you know, my spiritual journey started, and, you know, I got the opportunity to start working with the plants and studying with different medicine men and women. I went to India and Nepal for 6 months and, you know, studied yoga and meditation. And I really just went on a spiritual healing journey. And then a few years into that process, I really wanted and was ready for kind of a deeper training and initiation. And so that's really what led me to the Amazon jungle for the first time. I was looking for a teacher. I was looking for a lineage. I was really calling that in. And at that point, I had experienced a lot of different types of healing modalities and a lot of different traditions within like the plant medicine world, but I was looking for a teacher. I wanted to really learn and study, and I really wanted to do that with un propio, like an authentic, true lineage carrier and holder. And so fate kind of aligned to invite me down to Colombia, and it's kind of, you know, just really aligning in the most synchronistic ways. But I got the invitation and I went down and I met an Ingano botanist and traditional medicine man whose name is Taito Juanito. And this was
Taito Juanito. It's an awesome name.
It is.
Taito Juanito.
Yeah, his name is Juan Chindoy, and the word Taita is a title. It's like shaman or page. It means father in Inga. And yeah, he is a spiritual leader and healer. And I met him. It's been it'll be 11 years, I guess. It's been about 11 years now, and my life like completely changed when I met him. You know, he really became my teacher. I've been in a deep apprenticeship with him for over a decade, and he, you know, him and his family opened their homes and their hearts to me and really took me in and supported me. And I basically entered into a profound healing process with myself. And I started to learn about who I was, you know, and I was still becoming an adult. So it was like a very unique moment to have that opportunity to do that deep self-introspection.
So you're like
healing.
18 at this point?
Yep, I was about 18,
okay. Wow.
19. And ultimately, I first was really healing myself, and then he started teaching me about the plants, and I started helping him, and little by little started to, you know, train and learn and study with him. And the way that he, you know, changed my life and brought me so much healing, there was no words for the gratitude that I felt. And that really was the seed of inspiration for Visions. And so how it came to be is, you know, maybe 3 years into starting to work with him, you know, I wanted to find a way where I could give back to him and his community, his family. And so I thought I could just maybe, you know, buy some of their beautiful jewelry and artwork and weavings and bring them back to California where I was living, and, you know, gift them, share them. I was just figured, you know, I could support them in that way. And when I brought back my first suitcase of these beautiful medicinal pieces, I was blown away by the interest, and it was kind of, you know, those types of textiles, those types of beadwork jewelry, they weren't as common at that time. And so there was like a tremendous amount of interest, and that was when I saw that there was maybe a potential there for there to be a level of like ongoing support and sustenance that I could provide or help with to the Inga community. And that really just opened everything up. And the name for Four Visions, the design, the architecture, the vision for the platform, all of it was born out of my work with the Yahe, which is their principal pillar, the Colombian form of the ayahuasca. And, when we go to drink the medicine, we are sitting in consultation with all the spirits of nature. And so for them, they go to the Yahe and they consult the medicine for all different things in their lives, and they'll place it on the altar. So for me, this vision, this idea, when it was just an idea, I brought it and placed it on the altar and I drank and to see what would come through. And I also asked for Taita to pray and to look in the medicine to see if the path was open for something like this, and to receive his blessing, to receive his permission, and also for the name itself, because the name Four Visions is another story that's very interesting, but
yes,
it refers, it also is from the culture, and it refers to the four visions of the Yahe. And so all of it was very synchronistically, woven together with my studies and with the culture that I was very, very immersed in. And so that's kind of, how it all came to be. And then little by little, as we grew, we really started to see that we could start to branch out and work with other communities. And so now today we work with about 15 different indigenous communities throughout South and Central America, Brazil, Peru, Guatemala, Ecuador, Mexico. And it's been beautiful, just really taking that design of partnership, of reciprocity, of mutual benefit, cultural sharing, and utilizing it to create, real, true relationships of empowerment and abundance and healing. And it's been such a gift. And so this is kind of how we grew. And then, again, it was, I don't have business experience. It wasn't my background. So a lot of, building this company was really just listening to spirit and learning, getting the training and getting the help.
You should have gotten your business degree from UCLA back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then your MBA, and then worked for some sort of corporate lab for like 10 years and lost your soul and then gone down.
I could have done that. I always joke the 10 years, in the jungle, that was way better than any master's or MBA I could have ever gotten,
Interestingly enough, you got your MBA basically out of necessity, because you were on this path.
Yeah.
And it's also very interesting that you felt like the spirit was showing you the way, because it's not like a typical entrepreneurial tactic.
Yeah, well, spirit was showing me the way, telling me like, you need to take this digital marketing course. You need to learn Facebook ads, So it was also that.
So there was part of that. Okay.
There was that, there was that like, okay, if we're gonna get to this next level, like we need to learn these skills. So it's not like it was like fully, in my meditations and prayer, visualizing, and there is very grounded work and many years of like working my butt off, to build this company and to also find the people who were going to build it with me too, and to put those structures into place. So it definitely didn't happen fully in ceremony by any means,
right.
So it's definitely like that day to day. And then it became also like my integration, my like putting it into practice, and go deep in the jungle and diet and study and spend time with the plants and the cultures. And then I would come back and I would be so inspired, and then I'd like integrate it all by walking my talk, by really creating this platform that was making it accessible for more people to heal and connect with the plants and nature. And it really fueled me in a big way. And so we just kind of gain momentum little by little. And then there was a big shift during the pandemic, because that was when all the borders closed. So for a lot of the indigenous tribes, the primary source of their income, the way that they build and sustain their communities, infrastructure, and also like how they maintain or clean their water sources and, cultivate their crops, all of the money for all of that, a lot of it comes from their ability to actually open their villages to Western people. They do retreats. A lot of the indigenous communities will do retreats, or they'll do festivals, or then they'll invite Westerners in. And so when the borders closed, that was huge and impacted a lot of our partners in huge ways. And so many of them came to us, and they asked us like, can you start buying a lot more product? And that was when, we really started looking at our model and realizing, okay, we could do that. There is a path to do that. Do we have your permission to run these ads? And we asked all of our partners, because up until that point, it was very organic and subtle, and we hadn't really given that
you guys were on
gas
the down
pedal.
low.
Yeah, we hadn't given the
You
gas
gotta know
pedal
somebody
to
who
grow
knows somebody
it.
who knows about Four Visions to go look at it on the
Exactly.
internet.
That's how it was. That's how it was.
Very
But
Matrix.
yeah, and they were like, do whatever you need to do.
Cool. You got full
And
permission.
so yeah,
Like, all right,
exactly.
we're gonna advertise.
That we
Did
advertised.
you use like their faces and stuff to advertise, or was it
a little bit? It depends. It depends.
But they were just open to it. Anyway.
They were open to it.
And
Some were
obviously
like,
it's not
yeah,
like
you can
you're selling
advertise
perfume,
it,
you're
but you
selling-
can't use our faces. Some of them didn't want their photos, you know. So we also had to work with that and like respect that. And but it was a case by case situation. But yeah, when we started like advertising, then we kind of really became a real company for the first time, and we started getting in front of a lot of people that had never heard of us before, and that's kind of when things really took off. Like, yeah, it's been 4.5 years now of that like growth year over year, a lot of expansion, and with that, also increasing our impact and our reach, not just to our customer base and growing our community of people, but of course also with the tribes is very concrete, scaling and being able to, support and be in that fair trade relationship on much larger levels. And then, we have our fair trade giving back, beyond fair trade giving back model. So on top of, the purchasing of the products, we're also giving back on top of that, making, generous contributions to all of the different tribes that we work with and supporting their projects. And that has also been able to grow and increase to something that, we're really proud of. We've given over $1 million back to the Amazon and beyond, the purchases of the products, but in pure donation and contributions over the last 6.5 years. So, it's like little by little, we're kind of proving that you can do it in a good way. There's a model that works, that is abundant and harmonious for everyone involved. And that's really what we, really set out to prove, that
It's
like
really like a new
ethical,
economy.
sustainable commerce model. It's a new economy, and it's like a new paradigm, and to prove that everyone can benefit, that it's possible for all parties involved to receive in a good way and to be nourished by capitalism, you know?
That's the thing. That's so fascinating, because obviously capitalism is so demonized in our culture, and money is so demonized in our culture. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, it's gotten out of hand. There's a lot of greed. We got problems. You know what I'm saying?
Problems.
But most of our problems are related to the fact that we're not connected to source and or nature, which is something obviously your heart is about. And then once you are that, then the system itself, capitalism, there's nothing wrong with capitalism. Like, you're using it in the good way where people benefit, and also you're able to give back and do the nonprofit angle, and other people who might want to give, like an extra whatever money to the nonprofit can do that as well. Like, that's really beautiful. And it's also supporting them in their traditions in their lives without stealing away their soul. I mean, that's been such the problem with, like, us bulldozing the Amazon, right? Is then we're just creating palm tree fields for palm oil and destroying all of the native plants that, by the way, lest we not forget, gave us most 90% of the pharmaceuticals that we have came from the Amazon and from, people who were working with ayahuasca to figure out, to say, oh, this plant helps your headache, or this plant helps whatever. Like,
Yeah.
So, which is that's another interesting fact. Like, we pillaged that whole community for so long. And now, what you're doing is really like sustaining them, supporting them in a good way so that they can have the things that they need to survive in modern times, but still maintain their traditional roots. That's so beautiful. I really thank you for doing that. Finally.
Thank you.
Thanks for dropping out of college. Go to drink ayahuasca with your friend down there in Colombia.
It's such an honor. And I mean, that's also the beautiful thing about the ecosystem of Four Visions is like, we're all doing that, and any person, any customer who comes, like, they are participating in that, and so they can feel really good about how they're sourcing their medicines. And we all needed that. Like, the Western medicine community needed that. that. And then, you know, even now we have so many people who come to us who are not in the medicine world. You know, they're just looking for, you know, exploring alternative natural medicines and are interested, you know, in reducing their reliance on pharmaceuticals or a different way.
Yeah.
And they maybe don't even have a spiritual path. They're just, you know, wanting something else and wanting to see if something else exists. And they are fully still involved in like the consumerist mindset, but then they get this opportunity to participate in this new model. So we're all doing it, you know, together. And it's such an incredible thing to get to participate in and to be a part of. And yeah, and the you know, atrocities that the indigenous communities have faced, like it's continuous, you know, the mining companies, the oil companies, it's so scary to really just comprehend, but like all of them are continuing to encroach on the indigenous territories and wanting to continue to rape the earth of natural resources, continue taking from these traditions that have already lost so much. And so, you know, it's not about saving them, it's about empowering them to save themselves and to protect themselves and stand up for themselves and finally, you know, reclaim what has always been theirs and to ensure that it continues to be there for their children and their, you know, the next 7 generations. And it's so beautiful to witness like that happening and through, you know, relationships like the one that they have with Four Visions, but other, you know, incredible nonprofits and other allies that they have, like they are strengthening themselves. And you know, one tribe that we work with has like gotten this incredible grant with some professors and AI technology that they're utilizing to recover their language. And so they're like working with incredibly talented people to document a completely oral language, you know, and to save it from extinction, which is it's at risk of being lost. And so there's this like beautiful ancient future happening and the technology being utilized in ways that it was like that it should have always be used for, you know, and like being able to finally see a path forward that is in harmony with the earth and with the cultures and with humanity itself. And so yeah, it really inspires me to see it and to also have witnessed, like even in the 10 years that I've been in this space, like so much evolution and progress forward, you know, and it's like going and moving in the right direction, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So there's something I want to talk to you about that relates to this and something that you just said about, you know, the tribe's ability to defend themselves against the encroachment of companies, which I want to circle back to. But I want to touch on this and reflect with you a little bit before we get in there, which is, you know, you talk about this. I saw this on your Instagram. All right, that's how we get on these days on Instagram. I looked at the thing and I was like, oh, that's a really wise point. I agree with that 100%. Which is that, like, because look, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. You know, I have good friends, you know, from Omaha, Nebraska that I love, man. I love these guys, you know, I love my buddies from college, from New Orleans, you know, like I love these guys, right? I love people and I love America and I love American culture, aside from all the total horseshit, you know, but like I love who I am, right? And I'm off on this like plant medicine journey, and a lot of my friends are just like, what are you doing? And I tell them, I mean, I'm open, but there's also just bridging to the regular population an understanding of like, it's not that I am shunning my heritage and who I am and embracing indigenous culture because I think it's better than my culture. And it's not that I'm culturally appropriating their traditions into my own life because I think it's better. No, my ancestors were in tribes. My ancestors were sitting around the Celtic fire, you know, doing the Druid thing or whatever they were doing, you know, or in France, like in that's Germany and all over the Europe is my people's. You know, I mean, and then going back and back, we were all sitting around a fire praying at some point before Christianity, before Judaism, before the big, you know, Islam, before Abraham, right? Before all of that, there was prayer and connection to the earth. And so it's important to note, as you've talked about in your own work and you are doing with your own work, literally, that the indigenous cultures have protected this ancient connection to source, that we all know and love. And when we experience it, we're like, oh my God, this is so great. Like you with your first ayahuasca drink, like me, same thing. Not that ayahuasca is the answer per se. You got to be called to that. But like that there is a tradition that calls you to be in more right relation with source. So I'd love for you to speak to that. And why don't we just start with that? Yeah. How do you relate there?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, for this important topic. And it's been, the forefront of my awareness throughout this whole journey over the last 10 years, because I would be lying if I didn't tell you I've experienced my own imposter syndrome in this whole journey, and who am I to create this company, and who am I to, be a voice for plant medicine or even for indigenous cultures, and so that is something that I've really grappled with and have had to face and study and understand. And my teacher has really given me so much guidance and strength in this regard. And one of the things that, what you were just speaking to has been so helpful for me in making sense of this, all of it, is that we are all indigenous to the earth, and that these practices, these ways of being in relationship to nature and to the plants and to the spirits of creation is within each one of us, in our blood and in our ancestry, and that no culture, no tradition has ownership over that. And within that, of course, there is, the necessity of, if you're going to receive or be in relationship with another culture, lineage, to go with humility and respect and reverence, and to recognize that this is not your birthright, this particular lineage, but to be nourished by it, and to allow yourself to be filled by that, and to utilize whatever healing, insight, wisdom, spiritual strength that you receive from that to fortify your own relationship to your ancestors, because we're all needing that this time in humanity's evolution. So many of us are so disconnected to our ancestries, and we don't even know where we come from. We don't even know the songs of our ancestors or how they used to pray. And so how do we get there? Well, some of our traditions, some of our lineages have been completely obliterated, and there's very little traces. But for those who have any traces, like to do that recovery and recollection, talk to whatever living elders are still within reach, or visit your native homelands, like that process is incredibly important to this, what I'm speaking to, of like how to interact with other traditions and right relationship, because we definitely do need to have that anchor, and we need to understand like the dynamic of what's taking place there. But this beautiful process of like intercultural sharing, I believe it to be not only the key to unlocking these codes that we're so deeply needing to figure out, and so we kind of, usher in a new era essentially for humanity, and we're in this really powerful time of like really, for the first time, our generation in a lot of ways is like facing that things aren't working, and we're questioning things, and we're realizing, that the dream we were sold actually isn't going to cut it anymore, right? And so for the first time, it never did, but like our parents didn't question it in the same way our grandparents definitely didn't, so right now we're like in this huge period where people are actually choosing to look at what is really important for the first time in hundreds of years. And so within that, we do need to resource ourselves from the people who have maintained and kept alive the flame of the connection with source. And the people who have done that are the people whose cultures are still intact, and the indigenous peoples all over the world have that. And so, in a good way, with their blessing and in reciprocity, to be able to do that, I believe to be imperative to figuring it out, to really understanding like what comes next. What does the next 200 years look like as we, enter into this new age of, AI, and really start to have access to ways of living that, our parents and grandparents couldn't have even like fathomed, so it's this very unique moment in humanity's evolution, and this piece of like the cultural reclamation and return back to essence, back to nature, it's very crucial. And so within that, there's this piece of like finding ways to do it. And one other thing I'll just mention is that this perspective is not shared by everyone. You know, you'll always find both indigenous people and non-indigenous people who will have an opinion that's contrary to what we're talking about, what I'm saying, right?
And respect.
Yeah, for sure. And but one thing, and this is something that I've really learned from my teacher, because, you know, he chose to come out of the jungle. He chose to share his teachings and his culture and his medicine with people all over the world. And he chose to do that because he really saw that if he stayed in his village and if he stayed in the jungle, his people wouldn't be good either, because they also need to advance forward in their own way, and they have to figure that out for themselves, what that looks like. But his people were struggling. They're impoverished. They were struggling with addictions to drugs and alcohol, which of course, you know, we introduced to them, but they were not thriving either. And so it was this vision of, you know, true faith and understanding that when we all heal, when all of us heal, then we can move forward, and that we need each other to do that, you know. And so it's like this recognition. It's not even that, you know, the indigenous cultures need to save us, even. It's not that either. It's that we all need to help each other, and we need to remember that we're all in this together. You know, if the rainforest disappears, of course that affects all of us, and it doesn't even affect the people who live there necessarily more. It truly affects all of us, because what are we without language? You know, with the loss of cultures, like complete traditions being wiped off the earth, like what does that mean for our identities, you know, and for the ways in which we connect to each other? And so we're at this like moment. It's a very important moment in humanity's history where we have to make some big decisions, and people like my teacher and other, you know, visionaries are really starting to see that there's only one way forward, and it's together, and it's by uplifting one another and by recognizing that there's just one race. There really is. And it might sound cheesy, it might sound, you know, hippie and spiritual, whatever, you know, but it's the truth. And maybe it sounds one way coming out of my mouth. True. Yeah. I mean,
cliches are cliches because they're true. And that it's true. We're one race. We're one humanity on this planet. Like it or not.
Like it or not, we're in it together.
There's a lot of people in humanity that I don't like. And there's a lot of people in humanity that I love. But I also love humanity as a whole, because here we are together, not knowing what we're doing, and we're doing it. So yeah, I think you bring up so many interesting points there. Like, I look, and there's part of me that gets mad. You know, I'm just like, I'm mad at empire for being empire, and for like all these different, you know, cultures fighting and vying to maintain control. But then, like, you know, I have history on all sides of that in my lineage and in my ancestry, for sure. You know, going back to like, one of my ancestors was a minister of war, or a major general for Napoleon. So not that guy did, I don't know. I mean, you know, whatever. He was Napoleon. He did some good things and some bad things, you know, but like that history, that tradition of empire. And then I have English roots and Scottish roots and all of that. So there's part of me that gets mad at empire for destroying these cultures. You know, like, I don't like that. It's caused so much wounding in our ancestry. On the other side of that, that's what happened. And here we are. And if it weren't for that empire, we wouldn't be here now. So even though we have this tremendous capacity to tear the planet down and totally screw it up, which we're, you know, arguably doing to whatever extent, we also have this tremendous capacity now, like you're pointing out, to really like flourish and harmonize and live in a good way on the planet. And so then, and there's also, because of the empire, empirical, what's the word I'm trying to use here? All right, the fuckers who just, colonialism, right, there you go. Because of colonialism, because of empire building, because of tribal warfare that resulted in kings and major powers, because of steel, you know, the formation of steel, conquistadors, Europeans, you know, we have lost so much of our cultural roots, our indigenous roots that tie us to source, because of the fact that though that ideology supposes that culture is right and better than the other cultures, and that our way is way better, and that our Jesus is better than your whatever you got, or our, you know. By the way, I don't think Jesus intended that at all, but that's the way it's been utilized, right? Sorry, Jesus. Really, I am actually. What a bastardization of that guy's message, in my opinion. You know, so like there is a reclamation of our ancient roots, and we are tied to that. And so like, I think, you know, what you're pointing to, I was so beautiful, like, right, that you go with humility and you really like acknowledge that this is their tradition and that you're getting fulfilled from it, but also like it is our tradition. It is, I mean, we have a related tradition that goes back and back and back to our ancient days, and we are all connected. And this guy in the jungle is just as much my cousin as you are, even though we both got blue eyes. Like, you know, so there's a recognition there that I think is really critically important for our healing. Like, hey, we're not demonizing where you came from or any of that. Like, we're just opening our eyes. You know, people thought slavery was cool because it was, you know, super profitable. People were like fine with it. And they convinced themselves and each other that it was okay, that these brown people are monkeys or whatever, the stupid things that people were talking about then. Really, everybody thought that was cool. And now, obviously, we think that's abhorrent. How could anybody ever even believe that way? That's ridiculous, which I, by the way, for the record, ridiculous. But anyway, people believed that. Now we're opening our eyes and seeing, oh, wait, maybe materialism and just getting as much shit as we possibly can before we die is not the fucking way. What else is there? So like, that's the thing. That's where this conversation comes in. That's where what you're doing with your life comes in. That's what Tata Juanito. That's close. That's what he's all about. So I think it's really beautiful. To the next question, and I really appreciate your stand and who you're being around this. Like, that's a hard road to hoe, and I'm sure you encounter varying degrees of like, what are you doing that for? You know, from all sides of culture. Yeah. So thanks for being a pioneer and like whacking the weeds. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Lunacy is brought to you today by 4 Visions, obviously. Okay? Look, if you're on this crazy plant medicine healing path like I am, and I encourage you to do so, this is where you get the goods. They've got all the hape that you could possibly ever want if you're working with that medicine. They got sananga, they've got sweetgrass, they've got all kinds of healing things. Palo Santo, you name it, they've got it in this realm. And the biggest thing about, you know, buying things from 4 Visions is that you're supporting tribes. So it's almost like, it really is actually like that, you know, you're buying things, you're buying medicines from these people, but you're really supporting generations of human beings that have been doing this medicine work for years. And you're also supporting yourself in your own healing journey. So it's like a win-win-win-win-win-win-win for everyone. Anything you buy, you get 10% off with code Lunacy2025 exclamation point at checkout. That's Lunacy2025 exclamation point at checkout. Look, this stuff is great. Check it out. Shop around. They've also got free plant medicine resources. They've got an integration program. You know, they're really in it to win it for all of us on this journey. So check out 4visions.com. Type in Lunacy 2025 exclamation point for 10% off. Much love, everybody. Lunacy is brought to you today by Sacred Tree Keepers. If you don't know who Jordan Mockingbird is, check out episode 79 of this program. He is an amazing human being, and he offers tobacco diets and tree diets, both of which sound insane. All right, it's called Lunacy, you guys. I don't know what you're expecting. For me, the tobacco diet was absolutely extraordinary. I healed so many physiological things. I had gut issues. My wife healed a bunch of things. We did it together. It was also incredibly empowering in a way that's hard to put into words. It really woke up my warrior spirit like nothing else. The oak diet, which I also did, was so healing and cleansing and empowering, and I released like a lot of shame, actually, if I'm going to be honest about it, and I will. You know, the whole thing about being a tree hugger. You remember that? back in the 60s. This is next level. You're drinking trees, all right? But it really is a gateway to sanity. It really is. It's a way to commune with nature in a way that you really don't ever get the opportunity to do so. There is a diet coming up, a metasequoia diet in British Columbia on Salt Spring Island. It's 8 days camped. It's going to be outstanding. The metasequoia is a 60 million year old tree. It's a living fossil. It was around when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth. And needless to say, there's a lot that we have to learn from this beautiful tree. I hope to see you there. When you go to sacredtreekeepers.com, type in Lunacy at checkout for 10% off. Much love. And then going back to, because you mentioned building capacity for these cultures to defend themselves against forces that are still trying to come in. Because that's like, I often have a fantasy of like, I'm not a violent man, but like, you know, there's just certain things where if commanded, I would, you know, do things, right? Threaten my family, and I know what to do, you know, so, but also threatening the rainforests. Those are the lungs of the planet, like literally. And once they're gone, it's going to be really hard to get them back. And probably we won't be able to get them back in the way that they are, because they've evolved over so many thousands of years to be what they are. And we're just taking them out so we can make fucking palm oil, which is terrible for you, by the way. Like, it's terrible for the human body. It's terrible for the planet. And yet it's so popular. So, like, I have fantasies about if I was going to join an army, it would be an army of people that was defending the rainforest. You know, like, I'm about trying to figure that out more. How do we do that? And how do we do it in a way where we don't have to like murder a bunch of people too? But also, like, how do we authentically defend? You know, put, I don't know, electrical fencing around the rainforest. You know, or whatever. So I'm curious, like, because you mentioned it, like, how is it that you see the people that you're serving through Four Visions, like, being empowered to defend themselves, as it were?
Yeah, totally. It's a big, complex question and topic, you know. So the situation of, you know, what different indigenous communities are dealing with and facing, it's maybe a lot different than what people imagine it to be like. And again, you know, each indigenous community, each village is in a completely different situation. They're dealing with different, you know, moguls. They're dealing with different challenges. They're dealing with different threats. There, of course, are a lot of universal themes. But when we think of like indigenous tribes in the Amazon, a lot of us think that they're like still living, you know, deep in their village and, you know, their palm leaf clothing and, you know, hunting their fish and completely self-sustainable. And the reality is a lot different. Now, there are some tribes that are still very isolated and still very connected to their original ancient ways of life. They're still farming or they're still cultivating their own foods. But because of so much of the influx of all of the things that, you know, colonialism brought to these communities, they are living a lot different than a lot of us really think of. So, you know, a lot of them are living in like metal houses, like shacks really, but they're made of like metal, you know, and they're a lot of them aren't growing their own food anymore. So they're, you know, buying food that's been grown in other parts and with, you know, not organic food. And most of them aren't like hunting their own fish and meat. So there's been like a really big shift in the culture and the ways in which the cultures are intact. And on top of that, they're also dealing with two other really challenging things. Number one is that a lot of the youth are leaving their territories and their villages. So they're leaving for a lot of different reasons, but they're going to whatever closest city there is to get some sort of like technological training job or like or tech training. So either, you know, some sort of like higher education or some sort of like level of training that would allow them to get a job. But in the city, again, like because they have been basically told that or brainwashed into thinking that they have to leave their villages and communities in order to get ahead or to make a better life for themselves. And so they've been like sold this idea that there's actually no value in staying at home and like learning their traditional languages or prayers or chants from their elders, or learning how to weave or make their art in the traditional way. And so not only are these traditional practices like getting less and less, but then the youth aren't even learning them. So there's like a threat of like a loss of culture and tradition when the younger generation is leaving. And so a lot of the tribes have been dealing with that, and then they're also weakened because the youth leave and then they stay in the cities, or they don't come back and have their families in the villages, and so they're spread out, they're dispersed, and there's not a lot of like ability to both defend themselves but also like build the resources or the infrastructure to organize themselves, even to really understand what they do want and what to ask for and what they're not going to allow. And so this is like a multifaceted thing that has basically weakened their ability to really defend themselves. And what of course continues to be the biggest threats is like the encroachment of the mining, oil, and the logging companies that are raping the Amazon rainforest of all of her natural resources and polluting the waters, and I also, just to clarify, it's not that they didn't want to fish, like they did, and then all their rivers got polluted, and so they had to stop fishing, right. And so all of the losses, they didn't just happen because they wanted to be more modern. It was really like that no force choice. Right, the no choice, and just trying to survive with the little that they did have, and trying to get by. And
it's hard to live off the land when the land can't provide.
Exactly, yes, it's hard to live off the land when the land can't provide. And so within that, it's like so multifaceted. Their waters, they can't drink their water, so they don't have to buy water. Like they bring these plastic water bags down in canoes back to the villages because they can't drink the river water anymore. And it's just like it's so sad, and like that. So I just wanted to paint that picture a little bit, because a lot of us think like, oh, we just need to leave them alone, but like leaving them alone doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, it's much sadder than I imagined, actually.
Yeah, it's very complex. So what they need is the tools to be able to clean their water reserves, and to build new wells too, and to drill new wells, and to be able to get fresh water again. They need,
and also fight the mining companies who polluted the rivers in the first place to clean up the rivers.
If they want that, and like that's again where the sovereignty of each tribe comes, of like them making the decision where they want to put their energy and attention and resources, and again, it's like within this alliance that we have with our tribal partners, like in no way are we wanting to repeat the mistakes of the past by trying to tell them what they need or what they should want. Mm-hmm. So it's really about, allyship is really about like listening, and seeing like what's most important to you. And each tribe and each community that we work with, like they have a different answer for that. For some, like they just want more land. They just want to be able to plant their crops again and have access to more land, and like restoring land rights is like really big. And then for others, like they have enough land, but what they don't have is clean water, or what they need is, to be able to have the infrastructure to plant again, and to relearn what like traditional farming methods are, because they haven't been growing and cultivating for multiple generations now. And then each tribe has their own priorities. Like for some, it's like it's language and culture. We want our schools funded. We want we want musical instruments. Like that's what's most important to us. No one's playing our songs anymore. Our kids aren't learning our music. So it's also about like this whole process of alliance and like partnership, and in this journey, it's also about really being willing to hear like what's most important to them.
Right.
And because when they are able to get done what's most important to them and the top on their list, then they start to empower themselves. They start to dream bigger. They start to see what's possible, and they themselves get to direct what their fight looks like. Because if we were just to come in and like try and be saviors again and tell them like, oh, this is what you need to do and this is how you should do it, like we'd just be repeating the like horrible mistakes of our ancestors.
Send them to Indian school, man.
Yeah,
teach them English and Christianity. That's gonna fix everything, man.
Right. So it's so
important to
complex, and it's
well, that's why what
yeah.
you're doing is important, because you really are empowering them to do what they do culturally and traditionally, etc. And then that gives them the resources they need to really do what's important to them.
And to value their cultures. You know, I think that's the biggest impact that I've seen from the work that we get to do together is like over the last decade, the youth are becoming more interested in their cultures again. It's like palpable.
That's cool.
It's very,
because all these
very
Westerners
cool.
are like, oh, this is neat.
Yeah, and
basically.
because they see that, you know, their uncle has started making an income through, you know, processing the medicine that their families have grown for years and generations. But now he has a new house. And how did my uncle get this new house? You know, so it's like, it's very, very cool to see that there is a direct impact that's happening and the connection is being made, and there's like that value being restored to the youth, and they're starting to see that maybe there is something there with like choosing to stay back and preserve their tradition. And then, you know, some cultures, some of the tribes, there's like a lot of pride that the youth are now like really taking with their culture. And if they are leaving or traveling, some of the Brazilian tribes have been sending like their young kids, like teenagers all over the world, Europe, America, doing these tours, sharing their music, their culture, their stories, and they're getting well compensated for it. They're getting you know, acknowledgement and you know, a lot of honor for what they're doing. And that is like the biggest blessing for these young indigenous youth, because they get to really like go a completely different route than, you know, what the last 20-30 years have been of like slowly like distancing themselves from their cultural heritage. And that's really like the path forward to save these traditions, or for them to save themselves, you know, is to restore, to reclaim, and to remember. And so it's been a really beautiful process to witness and to, you know, be in support of, and in any way that we can, you know, be listening and helping. And yeah, it looks so different for each tribe. And it's really, you know, a humbling thing to say, okay, we have $30,000 contribution this quarter that we want to give, you know, to you guys. And they're like, okay, great. This is what we want to do with it. And it's like, oh, that's what you want to do with it? That's the most important thing. It's like, yeah, that's the most important thing to us. And it's like, it's not the thing that you maybe would think would be the most important, but it's the
a new
most
Pepsi machine.
No, it's like, you know, they need dental care. Like they're, you know, they're not, they're not taking, they don't have good oral hygiene, and they want to
Pepsi machine.
Yeah, they want to bring
offense Pepsi.
They want to bring dentists, you know, and like have like, you know, real good oral hygiene brought into their village. And it's like, okay, great. That's what needs to happen. That's what they're dealing with right now. That's the most important thing to them right now. And like, we might be thinking like bigger picture, like, oh, they need to, you know, whatever, like drill a new well or plant, you know, new crops, whatever. But it's like, you're not there living in that village. You don't know what they're dealing with. And like, you know, their kids are like, their teeth are rotting, and like the elders don't have any teeth. And because they have like serious, you know, problems with caring for their teeth. And so that's like being able for them to like say, this is the top priority thing for us. And for them to get that support is like, it's really making a difference in beautiful ways.
That's awesome. That's great. So the defending their cultures is not as much, you know, like Batman as I want it to be.
It may be, but it could be.
But it's also that they have resources probably also to, you know.
Well, I mean, no, it definitely is that. Like one of the tribes we're working with, like they really want to buy this like 100-hectare property, which is like over 200 acres before this local oil mining company does. And they have like 6 months to get the money together. So that's the way that they're like trying to defend themselves, you know, is by purchasing the land before the oil mining company does. But again, it's like letting them have the solutions, letting them decide what the way is going to be. And the defending, like some tribes are very much more interested in protests or working with the government or trying to get, you know, legal representation and really trying to, you know, go that direction, or, you know, fighting in different ways, because that defense does look different for each tribe. But again, it's like some tribes, they don't want that. Sometimes don't feel like inspired to work with their government in any way. You know, they've already been
Why would you trust those guys?
Exactly. And then others are like, no, of course we want representation. So it's really
Right.
like a very individual.
I suppose it depends on the country too.
It depends on the country, the region, you know. So yeah, there's so many different factors.
Wow, it's really cool. So interesting. It's so interesting. It's lucky you that you get to like play in all those worlds and like see what's going on.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I'm glad that we're talking about it. And I'm just curious, are there ways for people to, I mean, and we'll also put this in the show notes, you know, fourvisions.com, I think it is, right? Haven't gone there yesterday to buy some stuff. You should buy some stuff too. All right. Do it.
Thank you.
Is there like a nonprofit that people could donate to that's related with Four Visions? And where do people find that? Where do I find that?
Yeah. So we have our sister nonprofit, Magic Fund. That was started with Taito Juanito and myself and a few other people who really believe in this vision that Taita had with specifically, we're working in the Putumayo region of the Amazon. So we work with mostly Colombian Yahe tribes in the Colombian Amazon jungle. And so that initiative is really beautiful, and a lot of our resources go there. And again, it's like bringing it full circle. You know, it's the Yahe that really brought Four Visions, and so we're like really focused on the cultures of the Yahe. And so you can go to magicfundamazon.org to learn more about our initiatives.
Magicfundamazon.org, everybody. Magicfundamazon.org.
Yeah.
To buy Pepsi. Just kidding. To donate to people in a good way.
And we have a lot of other indigenous partners, and that's another thing. A lot of our partners, they have their own nonprofits too. They've started their own nonprofits, and because they want to have the authority to spend the money how their community decides is the most important. So they don't want, handouts, but with strings attached. So a lot of our, indigenous partners they've created their own nonprofits. And if you want, I can share a list of those like after.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put those in the show notes.
There's so many ways, and so many different organizations that are working in different regions and with different projects. And one thing I always encourage people, it's like whatever medicines you are integrating into your life, learn about where they come from and get connected with that region, and see what you can do there, because then that connection, that reciprocity is really locked in and there. And so, we have our Brazilian partners, and if anyone works with Hape, learning a little bit more about the situation in Brazil and what they're dealing with is really, a great thing. And finding a tribe that you can support that way is beautiful. And but yeah, there's our contributions are spread out throughout our different projects and initiatives. And so Magic Fund is the one that we both fund and execute. And then we have about 4 other nonprofit organizations where we just fund, and they do all the execution, the planning, and
cool. Amazing. And is Taita still with us?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
Taito Juanito is 41 years old, actually.
Oh.
He became a Taita
youngster.
when he was 16.
He's 41? Little shit.
Yeah, seriously. He's got us all.
Just kidding. I'm 41, everyone. And if you believe that, I got some Pepsi to sell you.
Nice.
All right. Big time.
Yeah, he's ran circles around us 10 billion times already in this lifetime.
Okay.
He's a true
He's a
wise
warrior.
man. Yeah.
Wise man, warrior, shaman man. Cool.
Yeah.
I want to meet him.
Yeah, for sure. Come join us in Costa Rica, Colombia.
I will. So it's clear to me that you have a rare gift, which is that you are truly living your purpose. And there's no question that that's something that's so lacking in our culture, in our world, in our society. And so what's that like?
Thank you. It's truly such a gift that I, give thanks and praise to God every day that I wake up and I get to walk my path, and I definitely recognize that it's very rare these days to get to do what you came here to do, with so much conviction. Going back to that whole story I told at the beginning too, is the amount of absolute ignorance that I had to have to even take the leap, to start this journey, was just such an act of God even that sent me on this inquiry. And what I can say is that, it's every single day is, a journey. Every single day that I wake up, I'm still, dealing with all the same things that anyone who maybe isn't walking their purpose is, but I have the blessing of being motivated and given, the nourishment to do it, and that fire under my butt, for lack of a better word, is really the catalyst that like encourages me to show up and continue being better, continue healing myself, and if we don't have that, then we have to look for it, and one of the best ways to do that is through our connection with nature and God and spirit, and to continue praying to like come into greater and greater alignment with our purpose. And it's, that process, it's like somehow that happened to me early in my life where, I got given that opportunity, but not all of us have that opportunity. And we have to continue finding it and getting closer and closer to it. And, to get there, we have to be willing to, take that dive. Mm-hmm. And it's scary. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's that test of like true faith and trust in life itself. And, what is it like? It's like, there's nothing like it, There is literally nothing like walking our purpose, our dharma, because everything that's not that feels wrong, mm-hmm. right? So there's literally nothing to compare that experience to. And, I pray that I can continue doing it and inspire other people to do it for themselves too, because I think that that's really what we need as a society, is for more and more people to wake up and choose to walk away from all the no's or the maybes and to walk towards the yeses, and whatever that looks like for each individual person, to be able to know that and to have a deep enough connection with our authentic selves and like our essence to be able to know what the yes is and to walk towards it more and more every day. And, also I'll just say like, my purpose is not to like run an e-commerce company for the next 50 years. Like, I don't see this as like my ultimate, expression of my highest self and who I came here to do. So I also just want to put a little highlight to that too, because I'm like still obviously growing, evolving, learning, and this is one chapter where I'm in alignment, but in no way is it like the fullest expression of what I came here to do either. So mm-hmm. It's like they're all stepping stones, right, to like honing in, refining, cultivating. And when I show up and get to work with my company and my projects, for me, it's like no different than sitting in ceremony, because it's all one ceremony. Mm-hmm. It's my spiritual path. And like at first, when I first started doing this, I thought I had to like put it in a box, like my medicine work, my music, my arts, and then like my business world, and so for a long time I tried to like keep them separate, and then I realized like, no, they're not separate. They can't exist separately. Like how I show up as a CEO, as a leader, mm-hmm. As a boss, like that needs to be the fullest expression of, my spiritual self too, and how to merge them in like integrity, and sometimes that's hard. Sometimes like as a CEO, you got to make tough decisions, of like decisions that maybe like in the spiritual world seem impossible to make, in that moment too, you always like get the opportunity to put into practice humility and like listening to spirit and trusting and discernment and like clarity, right? So like even in those hard moments, like where I'm tested in my humanity or I'm tested in my spirituality, you could say, like that is the spiritual study right there. And mm-hmm. so to like be able to come at it, all of that and the day to day from that place of like, thank you God for the opportunity to put into practice these skills, this prayer, and for giving me the opportunity to walk this way, right, and to live this way. And just the last thing that I would say on this topic is that, one thing my teacher always says is like, you could be the most in your connection with source and in your fullest expression as like a spiritual being working as a chef, as a barber, someone cutting your hair, someone at the grocery store checking you out at the grocery store. Like every person's like fullest expression is completely different, and it's not the job itself that is the like purpose or the expression, it's how we do it. And so you know, people come to me and be like, okay, I drank ayahuasca and like I want to walk this path. Like, do I need to like give up my career as this XYZ, right? And he's like, no, of course not. You need to find a way to bring this consciousness into your law office, you know, or into the courtroom, or into the doctor's office. And like, we have to start to realize that like, it's not about separating these two worlds. It's about merging them together and discovering what that looks like. And so the people who I've seen really empower themselves like with their spiritual path are the people who haven't abandoned the career that they, you know, they do feel is like their service and their calling, but they instead have learned how to shape it or live it authentically, right? And like live it with good consciousness and show up to work every day or show up to whatever you're doing with your time from that place of love and from that place of connection, and to inspire that in whoever you interact with. And so for me, that is like the truest expression of alignment, is not so much what we're doing, but how we're doing it.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So many great things in there. Thanks for giving us a tutorial on how to live authentically. It's so fascinating too, because I personally, I'm super fortunate, and candidly, yeah, it took me a really long time to kind of figure it out, but I do feel like I'm living my purpose, you know, in various ways, through doing this podcast, through my music, you know, through doing film stuff and comedy stuff. And like, I feel like this is what I was here to do. You know, I'm just trying to figure out how to do it the best way. So here we are on the journey.
Yeah.
So I feel you in that. I think it's, and I'm super lucky in so many ways. So, what I think is fascinating about what you're pointing to is like, it's not separate. You know, there's a need in our society to separate these things. Well, this is my work and this is my relationship, and then this is when I go to church on Sunday. Well, then that's when I get to talk to God, but only on Sunday between 10 a.m. and 11:30, and then I shake people's hands, I go eat lunch. Like there's this concept that it's separate, and why the need for all this compartmentalization. And I think for me, it's because there's part of like, we have to buy into something that we don't believe in because it's not natural to us. So we have to go to a corporate job or a job that doesn't fulfill us because that's what we have to do in order to make the money that we need to make so that we can pay for the things that we need to make so that then we could buy diapers and be good parents, etc. It's like this whole thing that's like, you cannot escape this hamster wheel, which you talked about at the very beginning of the podcast. Yeah. Right. That's you were about to go down the hamster wheel life and you took a left turn, which I want to talk about that too. But, you know, so it's like, and then now we're stuck in the hamster wheel. We can't get the fuck out of it because like, here we are. Yeah. And we're disconnected because we had to like lie to ourselves to mean, it's okay if I do this job that's like sucking my soul and doesn't fulfill me in the slightest because I have to make the money so I can do the things for the kids. And at some point, I will have all the things that I need to be able to do the things that I really want to do so that I can be the man that I want to be, right? Have, do, be versus be, do, have, right? Which is what, I mean, that's the spiritual path. If I'm being that I want to contribute and then I love this, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about amplifying indigenous cultures, right? Then if I'm being that's important, then I will do the things that I need to do in order to have the life that I want to have, which is that's the route that you've taken, which takes, as you said, blind faith. But it's so fascinating to me that we have to like, I gotta fit it in so that I feel like it's justified, but it's not really justified in my soul and my heart, but I'm doing it because everybody else is saying that I have to do it and all my friends are doing it, going to college and doing the things. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's what we do. We like crunch ourselves into that box instead of like meditating, praying, going into prayer. Like whether it's praying with ayahuasca, which is like, you know, I mean, she takes you on a journey That's like, you're in the prayer, you're on her, in her world. She's showing you what she wants to show you so you could be the person that you want to be. And she's showing you what's in the way. She's helping you get visions and etc. And that's been the way for thousands of years with indigenous cultures. And also, by the way, ancient cultures as well. You know, the ancient Egyptians were working with DMT type stuff. So Jesus was probably working with that kind of stuff as well. I mean, this is nothing new. The importance of bringing prayer into our lives and really looking for what's really authentic to my soul and going to be a great expression, to your point, you know, and how do I show up in the way that's really going to be in alignment, you know, that's going to give me fulfillment. Like, that's the question to ask. If I'm asking that question and I'm meditating on that question, or I just have that as like a contextual question. I love this idea of having a contextual question in my life. Like, when I'm snowboarding. Okay, this is a great example. Snowboarding, everyone. What's he going to do with this? No one knows. When I'm snowboarding, I'm a really good snowboarder. I've been snowboarding forever, and I was skiing since I was 5, and I'm only 26. So, another lie. Just kidding. No, really. Not really. If I'm snowboarding down the mountain and I'm asking myself, how do I relax more? Like, I'm cruising down the mountain and I'm asking myself, how do I relax more? My muscles will naturally start to adjust, and my stance will naturally start to adjust so that I do actually relax going down the mountain. Then I can get more runs in. Then I can be in the flow more. It's a contextual question that I'm not even really trying to answer. I'm asking, and then everything in my being starts to comport around that question so that then I'm doing the thing. Yeah. So how do I live from purpose more? That's a question. Like, on this podcast, I talk a lot about this thing I call the love operating system, right? Like, we come from a fear-based operating system. Then there's the love operating system. How do I love more? You know, how do I accept love more? How do I receive love more from other people that are like trying to give it to me? And then how do I give more love to the people around me and to what I'm doing? And how do I like really be in love? How do I be in gratitude more? Because really that's the gateway to kind of the whole thing, is being grateful, being grateful and humble, you know. Asking those questions automatically elicits answers, and not just answers, but like a way of being. You know, it's like, I'm not like, I love more by saying I love you more to my wife, or I love more because I buy her flowers more, or like I love more, you know, so then I accentuate this syllable in the song that I'm singing, right? It's not like that. It's like, how do I love more then informs a way of being that becomes natural. So I think that's really fascinating. And going back to that, I feel like that relates a lot to what you're saying. I'm just kind of sort of putting it in my own box, the way that I think about things. But man, what a leap of faith. You quit UCLA. You're a college dropout.
I am.
Loser.
I know, right?
Man, I would not have had you on the program if I knew you were a college dropout.
I know. I don't tell people.
Like, if that was on the resume, I would have been like, nope, forget it. No, I'm kidding. That actually qualifies you, because that authentically makes you a lunatic. Yeah. So welcome to the lunatic club. Yeah, so that's a total lunatic move. Like, that's crazy pants.
Yes.
Like, you get into one of the top schools in the world. You're valedictorian. You're muscling through your freshman year. You drink some hallucinogen, right? And then you're like, yeah,
not for me.
Sorry, everybody. Fuck you, society. Basically, everyone. I'm gonna go search and find my heart. And I look. I get the power of plant medicine, and particularly at that stage in your life, like, it really occurs to me, and I really envy people like Aubrey Marcus talks about it. He did ayahuasca when he's 18. I'm like, I wish I did ayahuasca when I was 18. Fuck, come on. I think actually people should do ayahuasca when they're, I think, you know, do whatever you want, but like, people should go through rites of initiation. This is a rite of initiation. It was for you. But like, where did this faith come from that you were just like, I'm just going to trust, man, that I'm going to go to the jungle and be taken care of. Like, that this is going to work out for me. I'm going to trust I'm going to go to India and Nepal and study my heart. Like, what possessed you?
Well, I think, and anyone who has been either depressed or suffering in their lives probably can relate to this. But when we are living a reality that doesn't feel true, and it becomes so painful, it's so out of alignment, then we start to meditate or ponder upon the possibility and maybe even the probability that there's got to be something better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was not in a good place when I made that decision, and God was protecting me, obviously, to open my path in the way that he did. But like, it was actually from a place of like desperation,
okay,
because like I couldn't imagine the next 4 years of like that college lifestyle. It felt like I was suffocating. And then if I thought about like going down the whole career path and like living, buying into the dream that everyone was being sold, and it just wasn't making sense. It wasn't adding up. And because I had the plant medicine experience, for me, was what kind of gave me the first taste of the something else. So it's not like I was just going off of like there's gotta be something else. I had also experienced that something else with the ceremony, with the connection to the medicine, with the connection to nature. And I was like, I want that. I know I want to live like that. I know I want my life to be full of that peace that I felt in the ceremony around the medicine, and that, experience, that connection, that inspiration, that deep inner knowing. Like, that part of me is inside, and I want to find her. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of like the compass, and then I was just sent off into, my vision quest, whatever, like walk away from everything I had ever known. But I had a compass. I did. And the compass is our hearts. It always is, right? Mm-hmm. And if we go towards, what feels right, what feels good, we'll never get lost.
That's beautiful. Compass is our hearts. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's the medicine. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I have a teacher who loves to quote, we either change from one of two things, from inspiration or from desperation. Yep. And so you choose. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you really had a combination. Mm-hmm. Like you were really inspired, and then you were desperate to get out of what you were doing because it wasn't excited. Like you, mm-hmm. It's so cool because I love these ideas of like, boy, if you could just jump 30,000 feet up and then like see your life and the track that it was going to take and where you were going to go to be trippy. Like, man, you would have been like the chief surgeon at the fucking Mayo Clinic or whatever, like, or whatever. But you would have been unhappy, and then maybe you're an alcoholic and you get divorced and like, you're searching for things in a different way, right?
Totally.
It's kind of,
yeah.
Or like then all of a sudden the ayahuasca bomb drops into your life and you're like, oh, but this woman was happy and I want to be her and with her, and like so beautiful that you like really had the courage to, I mean, I know you were desperate too, so that's like part of it, and I get that, but also you still had the courage to follow your heart, to follow your compass. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, that's where it really comes into like the gratitude. And I think a lot about that other version of me also, that like looking down from, above and seeing like the two paths. Mm-hmm. I think a lot about her, and like, so grateful that I chose this path, and it's there's no words for the gratitude. And I also, one other thing about also my relationship with the tribes is like, I grew up with the medicine because I had the opportunity. I became a woman with the medicine. I became a mother with the medicine and with the traditions and the cultures. So I got that huge blessing. It was like right at this really pivotal moment in my life. You spoke about initiation. It's like I got initiated, and life organized for me to give me that gift.
Who brought you to the medicine?
My older brother.
Okay. And your parents were cool with it?
Yeah. It's funny. Like all three of us, my siblings and I, like we all work with medicines, and we've all taken a less traveled path. And you wouldn't think that looking at our parents, but they've all been very supportive. It's kind of, I think, part of why we were able to do what we were able to do. Like even when they don't get it or they didn't get it. And
they're like, yo, find your bliss.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's, it's like to have that opportunity to become who you are, and like it was like a second chance at life in a lot of ways. I got like that opportunity to become and meet myself, and before even like all of our patterns get solidified, and like our belief systems, because I was like they were there for sure, but they were able to be they were still very new, so I was able to transform them and really decide who I was going to become and be.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I wish more young people have that opportunity, you know, and that we can start to ask those bigger questions as a society, you know, of like what is important. And I think that inquiry of like what we value and, you know, what makes a good life, these are such big and beautiful questions to be asking. And we are starting to have those conversations more and more. And I think that, you know, I hope that 30, 40, 50 years from now, this story doesn't sound so absolutely crazy, you know?
I really feel like we're pioneers.
Yeah.
And I convinced myself of that willingly. All right?
You're a pioneer, Jeff. You're a pioneer. And you listening to this program, you're pioneers too. And you are.
I actually believe that. And I don't even care if it's true. Like, they might look at us in 50 years and be like, those idiots. Why weren't they buying more Pepsi?
I don't think so. I hope not.
No, I don't think so. I really do believe that we're on the path to reconciliation and harmony with the planet, you know? We are the ones we've been waiting for, that whole deal. I love it. Look, we're running out of time because it's almost 2:30 and I know you got to go. So how firm is that deadline? It's firm, huh?
Yeah, we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm happy to come on the show again too. We can continue the conversation.
That would be cool. Yeah, maybe I come down to the Amazon.
Yeah.
Put Tata Juanita, that young punk, on the show.
He has a lot to say.
I bet. So I just want to acknowledge, first of all, you're coming out with a new record, and everyone should listen to this record. It is awesome, everybody. So look up Mariah Gannessa. It's called Munai. I was close.
Yeah. It means unconditional love.
Okay. Yeah, I listened to it yesterday. It's really beautiful. It's really great. Really beautiful medicine music. And yeah, really felt like the deep prayer of it. And it's just great music. It's really great. Some great musicians on the record. It's really well put together. It's a really nice offering. It's you're 20 years down the road, you're gonna be like, yes, that was good. So great job.
Thank you so much.
So everybody check it out. Spotify, wherever you get your things. And people can find you, Mariah Gannessa, on Instagram, and Four Visions on Instagram. And also, do you have a website or anything like that? Is there some other way?
For Four Visions would be fourvisions.com. And for me, like right now, it's really just my music. So Spotify and iTunes and yeah.
Okay, cool. I ask this of all of my guests. For you, Mariah, what is sacred and what is insane?
Life is sacred. All life is sacred. And insanity or insane would be anything that goes against life. Simple.
That's a really good answer. That might be my favorite answer.
Really?
Don't tell my other guests.
You guys all had good answers too. All right. And you at home, the listening audience, have a great answer too.
Beautiful. That's really great. Well, I just want to close just by acknowledging you. I really literally you are a pioneer in doing the work that you're doing and creating the company that you've created in bridging our world here in the West with the indigenous world. It's such a blessing and such a gift to everyone who buys products from Four Visions, because they're so medicinal and beautiful, and you can just feel like in your heart that they were made in a good way, with integrity and authenticity. It's so beautiful that you're supporting those tribes and these people and like working to empower these cultures that we desperately need to empower. Like, thank you for doing that. And, thank you for just being like you. Like, you're a badass bitch. Sorry to say it like that. I hope that's not offensive.
No.
Like, you're really a badass woman. Like, it's really cool. And it's really great that you just like have seen the way and went for it. And, like, on behalf of all of us in the West who are so desperately searching for meaning and purpose, like, thank you for making it available through Four Visions and just being who you are. And thank you for shining a light and being an example of somebody who can like really like not know how you're going to get there, but then figure out a way to like get there and have prosperity and abundance for yourself, but also create prosperity and abundance for other people, and just use your heart as your compass. Like, that's so beautiful. So it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you for all those kind words, for seeing me, and for this beautiful space, and for all the conversations that you're having. I feel like these conversations are so important. So thank you for spreading the good word, and for welcoming me here and sharing my message and all the messages of all your guests with the world. So God bless you, and thank you for all of your beautiful offerings as well.
Thank you. I got it. If you want to support this program, please go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. Much love, everybody. See you next time.